Emma Rios was more than just an accomplished professional. She was a symbol of quiet resilience in a world that valued loud success. The glass-walled office buzzed with ambition, where accolades were worn like badges and validation was currency. Emma, however, wore her humility like armor. But in this world, was humility a strength or a weakness? As her colleagues eyed her recent promotion with mixed smiles, the room seemed to ripple with a silent question. Who among them was truly happy for her? Across the room stood Lara Medeiros, with her vivid wardrobe and hard gaze. A woman who wore confidence like a mask and wielded ambition like a weapon. Lara had always been there, lurking in the shadows of meetings, her glances both sharp and dismissive. But as Emma's recognition grew, so did Lara's disdain, as if Emma's success somehow magnified Lara's inner void. Why did Emma's modesty offend Lara so deeply? What was it about Emma that made Lara's insecurities boil? Could it be that Emma's peace highlighted Lara's disquiet, her stillness a reminder of what Lara lacked? Emma knew she was a subject of Lara's scorn but chose to remain gracious. Was kindness her strength or her weakness? She pondered, not in bitterness but with a sincere curiosity. Lara's silent anger, though unspoken, was undeniable, a ripple just beneath the surface of professionalism. What was it they were both searching for in this office of glass and steel? One could argue that Emma's strength lay in her humility and restraint, qualities that society undervalued yet so desperately needed. But there were moments, fleeting though they were, where even Emma questioned her path. What did it mean to be quiet in a world that rewarded noise? Should she meet Lara's gaze with defiance or compassion? As she adjusted her silk blouse, Emma prepared herself for yet another test, one she hadn't asked for in a world she wasn't sure she belonged to. Emma's promotion marked the beginning of subtle but undeniable changes in the office dynamic. Congratulations floated through the air, yet behind each smile lay questions, doubts, perhaps even resentment. "Congratulations, Emma," Lara murmured, her smile thin as paper. "You must feel lucky." The words hung in the air, a subtle jab wrapped in politeness. Did Lara envy her? Emma felt a strange pang, realizing that sometimes, success was a mirror reflecting others' insecurities rather than their support. Lara's demeanor grew colder, her glances more piercing. Emma noticed her once warm colleague now barely acknowledged her, a ghost of camaraderie replaced by the chill of envy. Was this shift all in her mind? Or was Lara's disdain a symptom of something deeper, an unspoken competition Emma hadn't even entered? As Lara continued to dissect her every move, Emma felt the weight of expectation, as if her success was suddenly a burden to justify. But why? Why couldn't her achievements simply exist? Emma found herself questioning, could Lara's silence be louder than words? Was it fair to assume malice in what might simply be insecurity? Yet as the days passed, Lara's scrutiny only intensified, her presence a shadow following Emma's every step. In meetings, Lara's polite critiques now felt like thinly veiled accusations. How much of her energy would Emma need to invest in defending her own path? Or was the answer, perhaps, to let Lara's bitterness dissipate on its own? Could she let go of the need for validation even from her detractors? She thought of the values she held close: integrity, kindness, peace. They had always been her guide, but now they felt like fragile threads in the storm of envy surrounding her. Emma had never wanted a fight, yet she was beginning to wonder if there was strength in standing her ground without engaging in the same animosity. But was that even possible? Could she find a way to stay true to herself amid the chaos? In the quiet sanctuary of her grandfather's home, Emma found solace. Tenzin, an ex-monk with a serene gaze, welcomed her with open arms. "You carry the weight of others' judgments, Emma," he began, his voice as calm as a still lake. "But is that weight truly yours?" Emma's heart stirred. How could she detach from something so personal, so constant? She craved guidance, yet doubted if anyone could truly understand the silent battle she faced each day. Tenzin placed a hand on hers, a grounding touch. In Buddhism we speak of mudita, joy in others' success. But envy clouds this joy not because of others but because of our own wounds. When we heal, we no longer need to diminish others. Emma listened intently. Could she truly feel joy in Lara's journey, despite the bitterness aimed her way? "Perhaps if you see her pain, you will see her differently," Tenzin continued. "But remember, her journey is not yours to carry." That evening, as Emma pondered his words, she recalled the teachings of Daniel Silva, a coach she had met through a friend. He often spoke of the law of attraction. "Focus on what you wish to grow," he'd said, his voice filled with conviction. "If you focus on peace, peace will expand. If you focus on envy, well, envy will grow." Could it be that her very attention to Lara's actions was amplifying the negativity? What if her energy shifted towards her own growth instead? As Emma meditated that night, she visualized herself as an anchor of calm amid the storm of office politics. She felt the weight of Lara's judgments dissolve, replaced by a resolve she hadn't known she possessed. Could she rise above without retaliation, embodying the values she held so dear? "The only approval you need is your own," Daniel had said once. For the first time, those words resonated with a clarity that brought her peace. Perhaps this was her path forward. With her newfound clarity, Emma returned to the office, a quiet force against the waves of resentment. Lara noticed the shift immediately, her eyes narrowing in suspicion. "Emma, don't you feel overwhelmed by all this attention?" Lara asked, her tone laced with passive aggression. Emma felt the old stirrings of defensiveness rise, but she took a breath, grounding herself in her own peace. "I'm grateful, Lara," she replied, her voice calm. "Grateful for the opportunity to grow." But Lara's bitterness had taken root too deeply. She smirked, dismissing Emma's response with a wave. "Gratitude is just a mask people wear when they're too weak to admit they want more." Her words struck like venom, yet Emma felt an odd sense of pity rather than anger. How long had Lara carried such resentment? Did she even realize the prison her mind had built? Emma saw the pain hidden behind Lara's eyes, a pain masked by competition and contempt. Emma began to realize that Lara's struggle was not truly with her, but with herself. How many of us carry judgments and envies, mistaking them as truths rather than projections of our own wounds? Emma wondered if compassion could serve as her armor. But was compassion enough to withstand the relentless criticism? Her heart ached at the idea of abandoning her values, but at what cost should she cling to them? As Lara continued to test her patience, Emma silently committed to her inner peace. She saw herself as the calm amid the storm, a reflection of the teachings she'd absorbed. Perhaps the greatest victory was not to change Lara's mind, but to free her own. As she walked away, her steps were steady, her resolve unshaken. The battle she faced was not in the office, but within her own heart. And at that moment, Emma knew she was ready to face whatever lay ahead. As the days passed, Lara's hostility became an almost palpable presence in the office. Every meeting, every casual encounter held an edge, a silent tension that others began to notice. Yet Emma, grounding herself in Tenzin's and Daniel's teachings, kept her reactions measured, her calm unbroken. How much longer could she endure, though? Every sigh, every dismissive comment chipped away at her resolve, a reminder that compassion is easy in theory but grueling in practice. But wasn't this the ultimate test of her strength? Emma's allies noticed the shift in the office dynamics. Her friend and colleague Marcus pulled her aside one day. "Emma, you're handling this with so much grace, but are you sure it's worth it?" Lara's bitterness. "It's like she's out to tear you down." Emma offered a quiet smile, grateful for his support. "I know, Marcus, but maybe what she's going through has nothing to do with me. I think she's just carrying a lot of her own pain." Was it naive to believe this, she wondered? Or was it the only way forward? Marcus shook his head, admiration and worry mingling in his gaze. "Emma, just don't let her push you too far. Your kindness is rare, but remember, you have the right to defend yourself too." Emma nodded, though she knew her path was one of patience, not confrontation. Still, how much longer could she hold on to this resolve? As the tension grew, Emma realized that Lara's attacks were not weakening her. They were, paradoxically, sharpening her inner strength, forging her patience like steel. Meanwhile, Lara's envy festered, driving her to act in increasingly petty and hurtful ways. She began scrutinizing Emma's work, pointing out irrelevant flaws, framing her accomplishments as luck rather than skill. And each time Emma responded with kindness, it seemed to fuel Lara's resentment even more. How many people suffer, Emma mused, simply because they cannot celebrate another's success? The true enemy she was beginning to see was not Lara but the poisoned mindset that envy creates, trapping people in their own bitterness. The day of the big presentation arrived, a pivotal moment that Lara intended to use to undermine Emma. The entire team gathered, their attention on Emma as she began sharing the results of her latest project. Lara sat at the back, arms crossed, her gaze an almost tangible weight pressing against Emma's confidence. Emma steadied herself, remembering her commitment to grace. But even as she spoke, a faint tremor betrayed her inner turmoil. Could she truly remain unaffected by Lara's palpable disdain? Midway through her presentation, Lara interrupted, her voice slicing through Emma's words. "Emma, you forgot to account for the variability in the data. Isn't that an oversight?" The room fell silent, colleagues exchanging glances. Emma took a slow breath, meeting Lara's gaze with calm clarity. "Thank you, Lara. I appreciate the feedback, and actually I addressed that on slide 10, she replied, keeping her tone steady. The room relaxed, though Emma's heart pounded. Had she truly just diffused Lara's jab so gracefully? Lara's face twisted in a forced smile, but the frustration in her eyes was unmistakable. As Emma continued her presentation, she could feel Lara's presence like a storm cloud on the horizon. Each question, each subtle dig aimed to destabilize her, to remind her that Lara would not accept her success quietly. But wasn't this a choice Emma herself could make? She realized with a strange sense of peace that she could choose not to engage, to rise above without diminishing herself or retaliating. After the presentation, colleagues approached Emma with congratulations, their smiles warm and genuine. Lara lingered in the background, watching, her expression unreadable. How would she handle this growing divide between them? Emma wondered if compassion could truly bridge the gap, if her continued calm could offer Lara a glimpse of a different way to respond. But she knew the path ahead would still be treacherous, with both light and shadow marking her journey toward deeper understanding and peace. As the last colleague left, Lara approached Emma with a forced smile, her tone deceptively sweet. "Congratulations, Emma. Seems like you're quite the favorite around here," she sneered. Emma met her gaze, sensing the turmoil beneath Lara's words. "Thank you, Lara," she replied gently, choosing to deflect the bitterness. But inside, Emma felt the familiar tug of resentment, the urge to defend herself. How many times would she have to prove herself? How long could she keep her peace intact? Lara's gaze hardened and she leaned in closer. "You know, it's easy for you, isn't it? Everything just works out in your favor," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. Emma took a steadying breath, hearing the pain that lay beneath Lara's accusation. "Lara, I've worked hard for this. But I understand if it doesn't seem that way to you," she said, her voice soft but firm. A flicker of vulnerability crossed Lara's face, though she quickly masked it. Was this bitterness all she knew? In that moment, Emma felt a surge of compassion that surprised even her. She could see Lara's suffering, the inner wounds that had transformed into resentment. But could she heal those wounds? Or was it enough to simply see them, to understand that Lara's bitterness was not hers to carry? "You don't have to feel threatened by my success, Lara. We're both on our own paths," Emma said, her words gentle but resolute. Lara's eyes flashed as if the truth was too painful to accept. Lara's response was a scoff, a final act of defiance, before she turned on her heel and walked away. But as Emma watched her retreating form, she felt a strange sense of peace. She had faced the storm without losing herself, without compromising her values. In that moment, Emma understood the depth of her own strength, a strength that needed no validation. For the first time, she felt the freedom of standing in her truth, untethered by the judgments of others. As the weeks passed, Emma felt a profound shift within herself. Her interactions with Lara no longer held the same weight. The bitterness, once so palpable, seemed to dissolve in the light of her newfound inner peace. She felt liberated, as if Lara's envy had lost its grip on her spirit. What would it mean to carry this peace forward, to let it guide her? She realized that her journey had been less about Lara and more about discovering her own resilience, her own grace. Colleagues began to notice the calm that emanated from Emma, their respect for her deepening. She became a quiet influence, her actions a testament to the power of compassion over retaliation. Could her example inspire others to respond to conflict with kindness, to see beyond their own ego-driven desires? He hoped so. And as she shared her story with close friends, she felt a ripple of understanding pass between them, a subtle shift toward a more compassionate way of being. Even Lara seemed subtly changed. Though her resentment hadn't vanished entirely, there was a hesitance in her actions now, a quietness that hinted at introspection. Could Emma's compassion have planted a seed, a glimpse of another path? Emma didn't need to know. The freedom she felt was enough, a gift she had given herself by choosing peace over pride. Her journey had been one of shedding expectations, of embracing her values no matter the cost. And so, Emma returned to her work with renewed purpose, her focus no longer tethered to the judgments of others. The reward she found was not in external praise or approval, but in the quiet confidence that arose from living authentically. As she moved forward, she knew that her greatest strength was the peace she carried within, a light that would guide her regardless of the storms that came her way. Emma's newfound peace became a cornerstone of her daily life, a quiet strength that guided her interactions and choices. Each day she found herself less reactive, more centered, her thoughts less tangled in others' opinions. Her path was now one of calm acceptance, a journey inward rather than a need to prove herself. Could this peace withstand the test of time? She wondered if, in choosing this path, she had truly left behind the invisible chains of judgment and envy. Lara, though still present, seemed to fade into the background of Emma's consciousness. Emma no longer felt the weight of Lara's gaze, nor did she brace herself for the familiar criticisms. She simply existed, moving through her work with grace, as if Lara's presence had become inconsequential. Was this true freedom? To be untouched by those who wished to diminish her? Emma felt a profound sense of gratitude, understanding that her strength now lay in her ability to remain unshaken. Her friends and colleagues observed the transformation with quiet awe, sensing a new depth in her presence. One evening, Marcus pulled her aside. "Emma, I don't know how you do it. You've shown us all what true resilience looks like," he said, admiration shining in his eyes. Emma smiled, feeling the warmth of his words. "Thank you, Marcus. I've realized that peace isn't about avoiding conflict. It's about choosing not to let conflict define you," she replied. And in that moment, she knew her journey had come full circle. As she left the office that evening, Emma looked out at the city skyline, its lights flickering in the dusk. The battles she had fought, both external and internal, felt distant, like a chapter that had finally closed. She walked home with a light heart, feeling a profound sense of completeness. Her peace was not conditional, not fragile. It was a strength that no one could take from her, a truth she could carry forward. She knew now that this was her true power. Unexpectedly, Lara sought her out the following week. Her expression was softer, her demeanor uncharacteristically quiet. "Emma," she began, hesitating. I wanted to apologize. I realize now that my resentment had nothing to do with you." Emma listened, sensing the vulnerability in Lara's voice, the silent struggle behind her words. Could this be a new beginning for them? Could Lara truly transform? Emma met her gaze with kindness, recognizing the courage it took to admit one's faults. Lara continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was never about you, Emma. It was my own insecurities. Seeing you succeed, it reminded me of what I felt I lacked." Emma's heart softened, empathy flowing through her. How many of us, she wondered, have been trapped in the chains of our own envy, projecting pain onto others? "Thank you for sharing that, Lara," Emma said, her voice warm. "I truly believe we each have our own path, our own timing. And there's no need for comparison." Lara nodded, a tentative smile breaking through. For the first time, Emma saw not a competitor, but a person carrying her own wounds, her own journey of self-acceptance. Could they find common ground, build a bridge of understanding? Emma hoped so, knowing that compassion had the power to heal even the deepest divides. "Maybe one day we can support each other's growth," Emma added, offering a hand of friendship. Lara's eyes softened, and in that moment, they both knew that the past could finally rest. This exchange marked a new chapter, not just for Emma but for Lara as well. Both women had journeyed through the storm of envy and emerged changed. Emma knew that forgiveness was not a sign of weakness but of strength, an act that liberated not only the forgiver but the forgiven. And as they parted ways that day, Emma felt lighter, her heart brimming with hope. In choosing compassion, she had chosen her own freedom, her own peace. With her journey complete, Emma found herself sharing her insights with colleagues and friends, a quiet mentor guiding others through their own challenges. She had learned that true success was not in accolades or praise, but in the peace that arises from living authentically. Her words, spoken with a soft confidence, resonated with those around her. "The only validation you need is your own," she would say, her voice carrying the weight of experience. Could her story inspire others to seek peace over pride? Emma's influence grew not through ambition but through integrity. Colleagues sought her advice, drawn to her calm presence. And slowly, a shift occurred in the office. A subtle, collective decision to value collaboration over competition, kindness over envy. Could it be that Emma's journey had planted a seed, a ripple that would inspire a culture of support? She watched as her team grew stronger, united not by rivalry, but by mutual respect and understanding. Lara too seemed changed. Though still reserved, there was a new warmth in her demeanor, a tentative openness that hinted at growth. Emma felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that her journey had not only transformed her but had touched others as well. Could compassion truly be the antidote to conflict? She believed it was, and her story was proof. In choosing peace, she had found a strength that went beyond recognition. A strength rooted in love, not fear. Emma's return with the elixir was her own transformation, a gift she now shared freely with others. Her journey had taught her that peace was not a destination, but a way of being, a choice made daily. And as she continued her path, she carried with her the wisdom that had been her guide, a quiet flame lighting the way for those who sought their own truth. In a world that valued noise, Emma had found power in silence, a lasting peace that would sustain her always. In the end, Emma's journey teaches us that true strength isn't in proving others wrong. It's in holding onto your peace despite the storms around you. She discovered that compassion and self-worth aren't just ideals. They are shields against the corrosive power of envy. Through her quiet resilience, Emma found that freedom isn't escaping conflict, but transcending it. Her story reminds us that staying true to ourselves, even when tested, is the path to lasting peace. Emma's transformation also highlights the power of empathy. By choosing compassion over retaliation, she not only changed her own life but influenced those around her. In a world that rewards competition and comparison, her actions challenge us to ask, what if success is measured not by how we surpass others, but by how we lift each other up? Emma's journey is a call to embrace self-awareness and recognize that our true value is independent of others' approval. Do you believe that staying silent in the face of envy and criticism is a sign of strength or weakness? Is it wiser to respond with compassion, or does silence allow others to walk over you? Share your thoughts in the comments and let's explore together. Hit like if you think kindness is the ultimate power even in the most competitive spaces. How would you handle envy in your life? Rise above or confront head-on?